Good evening, everyone. Grandma's handbag back again. Got a contest entry for you. This is Lost in the Liner Notes. Not Enough Records 100 subscriber contest. Danny at Not Enough Records. This one's for you, Danny. Grandma's Little Helper, the classic, lovely, smoky, peaty, somewhat sweet, great stuff. Lagavulin, 16-year-old Islay, one of their finest standard malts. Great stuff. So, because it's a contest entry, Danny, this one means you're drinking with us, and I'll help you out if you can't finish it. Maybe I'll help you out a bit later. Enough rambling. Anyway, I've got a little tribute hat on because Danny, quite often in his videos, he's suitably attired with some good headwear. And what to say about Not Enough Records, the channel, and Danny as a person? Look, just a down-to-earth, downright lovely guy, and just a really great channel. Look, if you aren't subscribed to Danny, there's going to be a link down below, and you do need to go and have a look at that. He's just putting out wonderful videos and showing pretty incredible records. There's always something I'm learning on there, and that's what I really love about the VC in these videos, I think earlier on I might have described Danny as, feeling like a student of music, someone who wants to learn. But I mean, such as the, I don't know, the quality of his channel, the growth is now there that he's over 150 subscribers from this contest and on. As people really start to tune in and realise he's not just a student, but increasingly becoming a real teacher. And I think that's the best way to be. If you can be a teacher and someone that puts that passion through, but at the same time be a student, someone who's always learning and finding out new things, it keeps that magic and that spirit alive. And that's what's suffused all the way through Not Enough Records. So that's for you, Danny, and I really do again implore anyone who's not subscribed to go and check out Not Enough Records. On to some records. So Lost in the Liner Notes. Really applaud this contest idea because people come to music in different ways. Some people can be very visually oriented. Some people it's all about sound, which makes sense, it's music. One way that really gets to me is about music is writing. If people can write well about music, if people can talk well about music, which is a lot of people here in the VC, then that's what I really, really resonate with. So Lost in the Liner Notes is just a fantastic way to focus for a moment on those liner notes, those words surrounding the music in all their different variations, permutations, and so forth, and what they add, what they give, So with the first one, this it could get a bit personal, some of these. It's just a story that I want to weave in on what they meant to me, which I guess is part of the point of this contest as well. Robert Johnson, Complete Recordings. So this is a 2 CD box set. Don't have the vinyl. No biggie in my books. But I got this probably still as a teenager. And this was just a real mind-blowing kind of box set, We've got a 48-page booklet in here. But what this sort of did was bring to life, so much about Robert Johnson, and then all these other names that you began to hear of in blues. And we're talking the late 90s. It's not something that you could easily dial up on the internet like you might today. these histories. So it's just fascinating. It goes back to speak to people who were contemporaries of Robert at the time, family things. So you already get this sense of these voices, these, somewhat ancient voices out of time and speaking completely of a different time, but telling you all about what surrounds the music that you're about to hear. And just wonderful stuff, lots of informative things here. And then there's a couple of tributes, I suppose, by Keith Richards and Eric Clapton, not to be sneezed at, in there as well. After that, you have all the lyrics translated in there. And I think this is just so influential for me because it set in train a way that I approach the blues, and especially this sorts of blues that I was initially drawn to, which is if it wasn't your Delta blues, it was your country blues, your the down home, the folk blues, those sorts of things that preceded the Chicago or the electric blues. So this has a real almost anthropological bent in a way, and that really, really resonated with me. So that's one of the liner notes that just has always framed my thinking around the blues, and they pop up at random times to think about. So the next one, this album again, I think Danny, or I'm not sure if Andrew Tales from the Crate mentioned or brought out some folk records, but the notion of liner notes on folk records almost explaining tradition and carrying it on in its own way. And this was somewhat similar to me as well. Woody Guthrie sings folk songs. You got Lead Belly, Cisco Houston, a Folkways recording with an introduction by Pete Seeger. Now, this album, believe it or not, I found this, again, wouldn't have been much older than 20 or 21. And it was still in a shrink of sorts, and it was such a confusing thing for me because looking at it, it looks ancient, and I could find no more information on there. It was in shrink, and then I opened it up, and within inside is this incredible document. Woody Guthrie sings folk songs. So basically, it's all the lyrics and tablature for the music that you're about to hear. And again, just the parchment, the paper itself, everything about this looked ancient. I couldn't understand how this record came to be in a thrift store box for $2 or so, and then to find this sort of treasure, this kind of parchment document inside that gave you even more about the music than you needed. Not just the lyrics, but how you can play it. The introduction there from Pete Seeger, I just found it absolutely fascinating. And I still do. It's such a hard thing to work out in context when this album came. And it's only been in recent years that I've been able to find that there was a reissue series, I think in the 1980s, of Folkways recordings where this one most likely would have come from. It's that myth, that sort of, that stuck with me for years. What's the story? How did this record get to be here? But a fantastic tablature to go along with the folk story and the mythology. Such a great liner note to read through and listen. Now, I didn't go into the Pete Seeger introduction. I suppose I just wanted to point out finding that treasure within was part of the joy. This next one is kind of similar. I suppose the next two are similar as well. Around that same time, trying to find information in the pre-internet age on your favourite bands. And Belle and Sebastian were probably the first band that a contemporary band that I got into in such a big way that felt like it was my band, you know. Now, the story with Belle and Sebastian is that I came across them on their second album. This is the first album, their debut album, which was released, I think, in early 1996. Their second album came out late 1996, and I would have picked that up, I think, early 97. When I got that second album at the record store, I started speaking to the guy behind the counter, and he pointed out, he said, yeah, look, Belle and Sebastian, not many people know them. He says, I've heard of one guy locally, he sent a letter off to them in Glasgow looking for their first album, which wasn't around until, I think this was released or repressed in maybe 99? Yes, 1999 this was re-released. So in early 97 there was rumours that you could still write to the band and get a copy of their LP sent out to you. Of course, it later turned out that they only ever made 1,000 copies of this first album. And there was so little information around on the band at that time as well. Part of their shtick or mythology was keeping very quiet, a very Smith-style PR anti-campaign in a way. They didn't make themselves easily available. But what I loved about the liner notes for this here, and to be honest, I'm not sure if it's on the original, but effectively, as I learnt more about the band as time went on, it made this little blurb up the top here move from fiction into fact. So what it basically tells is how the band came to be in a fictitious story of Belle, a girl, and Sebastian, a boy. There's no Belle or Sebastian in the band. They were named after a French cartoon characters. So, but what they end up saying, things on here that later on actually turn out to be basically the band's story. So it's very, very, very interesting to read all of that years later and go, oh, okay, they're not just spinning a liner note blurb for the sake of it or a cutesy story. A lot of these things hold the kernel of the band's history in there, but we weren't to know that in pre-internet times. So yeah, this next one was again I give this band a bashing and I'll continue to, but Spiritualized. This is their first album from 1992. And there's a simple thing. I think there's always been a retro, I hate that term, but a retro element to the band. They believed in the power of, the mythology and the history of rock and roll, to the point where they deliberately did put a liner note in there. And the first time I got this, I remember reading these notes before putting the album on. I would have bought the first copy on CD, taking it home on the train. I had a tape Walkman, so I couldn't wait to get it home and play. And it's just really interesting. It tells you a little bit about the band. I'll read it. I'll give you a bit of a taste. Step in, turn out the lights. A lot of stuff has been written about Spiritualized. Now you're in, and the sound cascades around the bass swell. None of it matters much. What matters is that surge that comes in, and you know it's true, and what follows. Like all great rock and roll, it's about this weird old life. How it got you in its sway, and it makes some kind of sense. How you sometimes feel like the sky will peel away like a mask and reveal something more brilliant behind, and how you sometimes feel like it'll just plain cave in, and how sometimes it just seems good. Like all great rock and roll, it sounds right because it might just have happened. Now, it goes on for a tiny bit more, but it says here, you want to know about the tangling guitars, the twinkle of the organ, the wash of the horns, the crescendos and codas, and how it all fits in, whether you should be tied in bars or in 200 bars. Take it step by step. Okay, go ahead. All you have to do is step out there. It's coming down in sheets. And that was just such an evocative sound. Like it if I could have put wings on that train, on that journey to get home, play that and enter that whole world that those liner notes are teasing, tantalizing me with, describing, I would have done anything to get there. And that sense of anticipation building was just amazing. And, it can set up a lot of expectations, but I suppose I was at that time wanting those expectations to be met and exceeded, So every time now I just think about that last line, step out there, it is coming down in sheets, and what a way to describe the immersion of yourself and your soul and being into music. Just brilliant. So yeah, that's an incredible one of the very first ones I thought with on this. All right, the last one, probably can't go another video out without our man Brian Eno, Before and After Science. Now, this is only a recent one that I sort of noticed. A lot of these are etched in my history, the previous ones, but this one, fairly recent, because I started looking into, you often see people post this on the Vinyl Community Facebook page or elsewhere, and one of the first questions people ask is, have you got the art prints? So first presses of this, and I'm not sure, this is an American press, but I'm not actually sure whether America got these in the first press, but these 4 art prints were included in first presses. I think there are only a couple of thousand out there for each country that did participate. But what I love with this is that I guess this little blurb here that I'll read in a second, it ties together that this is more than just the music. There's actually a range of ideas that began before the music, come into this record, play into these visuals, and then go on again into other things and realms and whatever it takes. So it says, apart from our collaboration on this record, Peter Schmidt, who was the pictures here, who made the 4-set pictures, Peter and I have been working together and comparing notes for some time. In 1975, we produced a box set of Oracle cards called Oblique Strategies, which were used extensively in the making of this record. It says this record was recorded in London with Rhett Davies and at Connie's studio outside Cologne with Connie Plank. And it's basically at the end it says here, the prints were made at Westerham Press in Kent on a Roland 4B 4-colour offset machine and printed on Royal Cornwall cover 160 GSM book white. The printing was supervised by Hans-Jörg Mayer. So I love that there's this detail, not only that, the music that's contained here, but the detail, the care and dedication to presenting and printing those prints that we only see, because this isn't a first press here, as 4 separate pieces of art, down to the stock paper that they used, the type of machine that's used as well. So I really, really appreciate that. And it's just had me thinking more and more as I realise that it's meant to be of a piece, that I probably need to go out and get a first press. Now, I don't know if that was the point of these line notes, to make me a lot poorer, but I think I need to go and have a look into it, considering that the liner notes here sort of bring in this whole greater concept of art before and after, especially with the famous Oblique Strategies cards. Alright, thank you very much, Danny. Congratulations again on your 100, your 150 and onwards. It's a fantastic contest idea. I really appreciate the chance to show a few records and chat a bit. And again, thank you everyone for chiming in and watching. Really, really appreciate it. Can't believe I get the chance to hold your attention for some space of time and prattle on about things I love. It's a real privilege. So thank you again. And Danny, this one's for you. Cheers.